Hey everyone, welcome to the Pink Toucan Creative Challenge. Today we are making this fun design and I've got my four colors laid out here. I've got my background painted black. I am using a 16 arm stencil, so you'll see I already have that on my surface. You're going to need a 5.5-inch surface. So whether you use a stone or you choose to use something flat, that's totally up to you. I already have a stone here that I'm using or that I already created. So tonight I am going to create on this flat piece. I also did this version live with the club tonight, so you can see a big difference in the way it looks between using a gray background and the black background. Changing your background color is always a really fun way to just give it a different vibe. So let's go ahead and get started. The four colors that I'm using tonight are Laguna, White Peach, Melon, and Fuchsia Pop. And so I've got my step-by-step guide right next to me. So if you want to follow along with this, it may make it easier as far as where to put what colors and whatnot. The surface that I have tonight is a 6-inch round. So you can use something a little bit bigger. This is going to give me extra room, but I'm totally fine with that. I can add something afterwards. So I just wanted to do something a little different than the stone since I already had the stone available. All right, so first I'm going to get my 2.5 millimeter stylus tool. We're going to use all the colors for this, and I'm going to go around the circle in order: Laguna, White Peach, Melon, and Fuchsia Pop. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in. We're just not putting the same color next to each other. So I've got my surface set up here, and I'm going to have the lines top to bottom. And I'm going to use this first ring as my starting point here. So we're going to start with some swipes. So I'm going to use my 2.5 millimeter in the Laguna. I'm going to start at that first ring, and I'm going to pull that inward. I did the top. Now I'm going to do the bottom. If you need to make it a double swipe, you can do that here because we're not really going to see the inside anyway. So I am going to end up with 4 of those. North, south, east, and west in Laguna. Then we're going to go over just a half a space. So here I don't have a line, but it would technically be this line here. So it's in between this T and this T is where I'm going. I'm going to use the White Peach, and I'm going to pull a swipe inward. So right next to that Laguna. And this first ring is the only one that doesn't have that set of 16 for me. It's only got that 8. So I just have to picture it there. And on my next line here, I'm going to use my Melon. I'm going to do the same thing. Swipe inward. We're going to have 4 of those. And then I've got room for one more set of 4, so that is our Fuchsia Pop. It goes right in there. And so that is our center. Once you have all the swipes and all the colors, we're going to get our 6mm dotting tool. I'm going to use Laguna, and I'm going to do a center dot right on top of that. I might need a little help with it since my paint is wet. You could totally do this at the end too, but I'm just going to make sure all my paint's covered. So there you have the center. Then I'm going to get my 4mm tool. We're going to use all the colors again, but what I'm going to do is shift it over. So all of these swipes were created on the lines. You'll see they match up for me on the lines. I'm going to place a dot in the spaces. So again, I'm going to start with Laguna, 4mm. I'm going to find my Laguna swipe, and then this dot is going to go just above that ring in the space. So it's not on a line, it's in the spaces. I'm going to do that for all 4 Lagunas. So I find my swipe, and then it goes in the space just next to it. Then we're going to go through our set of colors again. So I started with Laguna, and then I used white peach. So I know this white peach is going to go in the space right next to that Laguna. So I'm going to do 4 of those. And next we've got Melon, 4mm in the next space. So 4 of those. And then finally, 4 of the Fuchsia pop. Then I'm going to get my 1mm tool, my smallest stylus, and I'm going to do a set of double dots in between each of these dots that I just made, in between each of the dots in that ring. So right here, this is what I'm talking about, these little double dots right here. So I dip once and then I dot, dot, dip again, and then dot, dot. And we're going to do that all the way around. So it doesn't matter where you start. We're just going around the circle here. And these double dots fall on the lines in between the dots in that row. Next, I'm going to get a 6mm tool. And so for this, what's important to remember or to note that we are going to go out a little bit. So I'm going to place my dot right next to this next ring, okay? I want a little bit of space because we are going to go in and make a dot in between. So leave yourself a little bit of room. I'm going to shift each color over. So I'm going to find my Laguna. I'm going to set my Laguna at my top and my bottom. I'm going to go ahead and dip. And then I'm going to find that Laguna dot. And then I'm going to go over where my double dots are on the line. And then I'm going to make a dot there. So I find my Laguna over to the double dots, up that line, and right on that ring. So these all go on a line. Once you get the first one placed, the rest are pretty easy. And then we just go through our colors. So Laguna first, then white peach, and it just goes on the lines all the way around. And then melon. And then fuchsia pop. Next, we're going to walk the dots around each of these, and we're going to shift the colors over again. I want my center dot to be 2.5mm. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and this just also helps with the planning of the colors. So we've been starting with Laguna. So again, I'm going to start with Laguna, and Laguna is going to go over one to the white peach. So I'm going to put my center dot on there first in 2.5 millimeters. So Laguna goes above white peach. Then I wipe that off. White peach goes above melon. Oops, got a little bit of hair in there. There we go. All right. White peach above melon. Then melon above fuchsia pop. And then fuchsia pop above Laguna. Now that you have all your center dots at 2.5 millimeters, you can switch to a 2 millimeter or even a 1.5 millimeter tool. And now you know what color to walk the dots in. So we're going to walk the dots around each side. I'm going to do all 4 of each color before I switch. And we just work our way around, one color at a time. Once you have walked the dots around each of those, get your 3 millimeter stylus, or if you've got a 3 millimeter rod as well, you can use that. Either way. And what we're going to do is use Laguna, and we're going to make a dot in between that petal and the double dots in the previous row. It's the same color all the way around, Laguna. This just fills in some of that empty space there. So 16 Laguna dots. Next, we're going to get our 6mm tool, and we are going to create some melon dots. So we were working on the lines. Next, we're going to go to the next ring. So this is the third ring that we marked with our chalk. So the first ring was the swipes. The second ring was where we put these dots. And the third ring is where we're going to place these. Except now we're working in the spaces. We're not going to work on the lines. So we're going to have 16 melon dots in the spaces. And I'm going to make them right on this ring. So every space gets a melon dot. All right, the next thing we're going to do is called a tadpole. This is the way I learned it, and I learned what it was called. But it's pretty much a swoop, and then we come back and put a dot on the end. And you kind of want the dot on the end to be off-centered, and it looks like a little tadpole. So for this, again, we're going to move the colors over. I'm going to start with Laguna because I just feel like starting with that every time keeps me where I'm supposed to be. So find the place where you walked the dots in Laguna and let that be your starting point. And then we're going to go over to that melon dot right next to it. So here's my Laguna walk the dots. Here's where I'm starting. I'm going to use this and we are going to swipe inward around this dot. Okay, so Laguna, you may have to double swipe to get it where you need it to go. So swipe once, swipe twice. It may depend a lot on your surface, but basically that's what we want. Okay, so we're just doing swipes right now. So I'm going to find all of my Lagunas and do those first. And I'm going to do all the swipes before I turn them into tadpoles, and then I'm just going to move through the colors. So I know where my Laguna is now. I can just move down the row. So next for me is white peach. So I do a set of white peach swipes next to the set of Laguna swipes. So 4 of those, and then I continue with the pattern. So the next is Melon. And the last, we should have 4 spaces left for our fuchsia pop. After you've completed all of your swipes, you're going to get a 4mm tool. We're going to match the color of the swipes with our paint, and we're going to turn these into tadpoles. So all a tadpole is you take a tool, and so this one is slightly bigger, 4mm, because we used our 3mm for our swipe. And then we're going to dip and we're going to dot these little dots at the end. And so it just gives it a different look. And so I'm going to go around and I'm going to add those on all my Lagunas first. And then I'm just really going to go through all the colors in the same way. I don't do these too often, but every once in a while I think they look cool. It's just something different. A different element to add. this is what it looks like when you do those tadpoles all the way around. So just a little different from swooshes. I'm going to continue using my 4mm tool, and I am going to add a dot. Now you can do it two different ways just depending on how much space you have. So on this sample, I overlapped it a little bit. So you'll see I matched the color of my dot to my swooshes, and this overlaps. Or on this one, I did not overlap, but I had a little more room. So if you want to put it in the space, that's fine. If you want to overlap, that's fine. I think I'm going to put mine just right next to it. Oops, I started with my fuchsia pop this time. Breaking the pattern, that's going to drive me crazy. Okay, but you'll see. Let me go back to Laguna. I feel like I cheated. All right, so I'm going to find my Laguna swipes, and then I just put a dot right next to that melon dot. And then you work your way through the colors. So I do 4 melon, 4 white peach, 4 Laguna, 4 fuchsia pop. And there are a few swipes that I just need to touch up a pinch. So it was this set of dots right here that we did. So right next to that melon. It kind of closes in those swipes. All right, I'm going to continue with my 4mm tool, and we're going to start this ring around the edge here. So part of this ring is these 4mm double dots, and so I'm going to find the ring of melon. I'm using fuchsia pop for all of these. So let's say I'll start by a Laguna, and what you want to do is find your melon dot, and then you're going to add dip and dot and dip and dot. So a double dot, 4mm tool, fuchsia pop. We're just going to work our way around the circle with our double dots. Double dots go in the spaces, not on the lines. The puppies are in here sneezing. The next two steps we can combine together. So I've got my 6mm tool. And then what I'm going to do, so I've got a dot here. So in between the double dots, I have a dot. So double dots, dot, double dot, dot. But I also have one underneath it. So what that looks like when you're dotting is you're going to put one in between that falls on the line. See how I'm right on that line? And then one under. So as you work your way around the circle, you do one on the line, one underneath, one on the line, one underneath. Then you work your way all the way around, doing that same thing on the line, underneath. So go ahead and work yourself all the way around with that pattern. Once you've completed that, that is the base of the design. And then I'm going to show you what I did for top dots. I used black, which was my background color. So you can use, I recommend you use whatever background color, but you could of course do whatever you want for top dots, and you can top dot however you want. You do not have to do the same as I did. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a 4mm center dot right here, and make sure whenever you top dot that your layer underneath is dry enough. If it's wet, Like you can see over here, my dots are still shiny. I can't top dot there or it will wreck it. All right, so my center was 4mm and black. And then in this first ring here, on all of these dots, I added a 2.5mm black dot on top of each of those. The last ring that I'm going to do with top dots is on top of the melon. I'm going to use my 3mm tool, and in this ring of melon, I'm going to add a top dot. Again, make sure it's dry. Mine is barely dry, so be careful. If it's not dry, you can always let it sit a few more minutes. There's no rush. There you have it. There's the design, the Pink Toucan Creative Challenge. I cannot wait to see yours. Make sure you share in the Facebook group or in the share space. Next week, we've got this fun design. Let's see if I can tilt it so I don't blind you with the light reflection. This design here is on a 9-inch canvas with a mirror in the middle. I super love this one. If you don't have a mirror, you can always make a smaller mandala design. You can use any element there in the middle that you want to. But this is our design for next week. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone.